For the royal family and the Commonwealth, he was a steady hand behind the scenes. The Queen's confidant, her love, her husband of 73 years. Tonight, she is mourning. Prince Philip is dead at the age of 99.
I, Phillip, will become your liege man of life and limb.
From day one, he was a witness to history, and he made it too. Giving up a distinguished naval career to support the Queen, he helped modernize the monarchy and died the longest-serving consort to the monarch. And through it all, his fondness for Canada was clear, visiting here more than any other royal.
He has quite simply been my strength and stay all these years.
The patriarch of a family confronting controversies, a constant companion, father, grandfather, great-grandfather, now gone. Days of mourning now beginning. Remembrance in the shadow of a global pandemic. Special coverage tonight. This is The National. And this is Windsor Castle tonight, a quiet place and one of sadness, outside evidence of a country in mourning, and inside the Queen on this, her first night without her prince in more than 70 years.
And in Ottawa tonight, the flag on the Peace Tower flying at half-mast as this country joins the Commonwealth in paying its respects.
Prince Philip died this morning peacefully at Windsor Castle, where he and the Queen had spent much of this pandemic. And tonight we know that is where he will remain as his family prepares to lay him to rest. Their mourning not caused by COVID, but disrupted by it.
And tonight, as we mark Philip's passing, COVID is our other focus. The pandemic accelerating in Canada, and today we're seeing some serious consequences. ICUs are filling up, so Ontario has ordered many non-emergency surgeries cancelled to make room.
We'll turn there in a moment, but first, let's head to London and to Margaret Evans outside Buckingham Palace tonight. So can you walk us through the feel of it there, Margaret?
Well, as you can see, Adrian, the palace is pretty much dark right now, but earlier in the day, lots of people all day long coming down to lay flowers outside the gate, even though they were asked not to because there are concerns about crowds. A few people came tonight even, but for the most part, people are saying that they really wanted to just pay their respects to Prince Philip and to the Queen, of course, at this moment of pain for her.
Flags flying at half-mast across the United Kingdom to mark the death of the Duke of Edinburgh, one of the most enduring figures of the British monarchy, and so too the identity of the nation. Born to Greek and Danish royalty, Prince Philip began life in exile from Greece, eventually coming to Britain to study and finding his way into a decorated career with the Royal Navy. His marriage to Queen Elizabeth in 1947 made him the longest-serving consort in British history, his place at her side often in the shadows, but ever present. The British Prime Minister Boris Johnson led the tributes.
It is to Her Majesty and her family that our nation's thoughts must turn today, because they have lost not just a much-loved and highly respected public figure.
News of Prince Philip's death was posted on the gates of Buckingham Palace, a statement from the Queen announcing his death with great sorrow, saying he'd passed away peacefully this morning at Windsor Castle. In Windsor, people took the long walk to pay tribute to a long life of service and to a long marriage, recognition from those laying flowers of the part Prince Philip played in supporting the Queen.
We thought the least we could do was come and just put some flowers down, just to show the Queen really that, that we're thinking of her, because she must be devastated.
Prince Philip's death comes, of course, less than a month after he was released from hospital in London, where he spent 28 days receiving treatment for an infection and a pre-existing heart condition.
Over the course of his public life, Prince Philip was sometimes called out for what critics called his blunt ways, but he was, he said, true to himself.
I've just done what I think is my best. I can't suddenly change my whole way of doing things. I can't change my interests. I can't change the way in which I react to things.
Publican Stuart O'Brien says that's why he stood out.
Because he was such a character, and I think he was who he was, and I think that's what people liked.
O'Brien says he'll miss him riding his team of horses past the pub. Officials have urged people not to lay flowers, anxious about crowds and COVID. But local residents, even the young ones, say they wanted to pay their respects to Prince Philip and the Queen.
I feel really sorry for her because everyone was really looking forward to his 100th birthday this summer, and then he's not going to be able to do it, and it's just really sad.
The Queen will no doubt take comfort from the kind words and the crowds outside the castle, but as dusk fell, it felt a lonelier place.
And Margaret, so it seems that lots of questions remain about what will happen next to honor the prince.
That's right, Adrian. As you know, funerals, royal funerals, be they ceremonial or otherwise, are carefully choreographed right down to the minute. Every step along the way through to day 8 would normally be laid out before us, but COVID-19 has upended all of those carefully laid plans. So we're basically still waiting to see just how the prince will be honored this week in the days to come and how he will be laid to rest. Adrian.
All right, Margaret Evans at Buckingham Palace tonight. Thanks, Margaret.
Prince Charles paid tribute to his father in a special BBC broadcast that aired today.
I think he'd probably want to be remembered as, as an individual in his own right, really. His energy was astonishing in supporting my mama and doing it for such a long time, and in some extraordinary way, being able to go on doing it for so long. What he's done has amounted to an astonishing achievement, I think.
It is a bittersweet day for the Prince of Wales. Today is his 16th wedding anniversary with Camilla Parker Bowles. Charles drove to Windsor Castle to be by the Queen's side shortly after his father's death was announced.
Now, as Margaret Evans mentioned earlier, because of the pandemic, long prepared plans for Philip's funeral are being adjusted. Here's what we know so far. In keeping with his wishes, Prince Philip's body will not lie in state, nor will he have a state funeral. Instead, the College of Arms says his body will lie in rest at Windsor Castle, where he died, and a royal ceremonial funeral will be held there at St. George's Chapel. Buckingham Palace hasn't yet said when that will be or how many people will attend. Current COVID rules only allow for 30 people at a funeral. The public is regretfully asked to stay away. Tomorrow at noon, 41 gun salutes across the UK will mark the Duke's death, and flags will remain at half-mast until 8 a.m. on the morning after his funeral.
Prince Philip made more royal visits to Canada than any other country. Here he is on a Manitoba tour in 1970. He's been here more than 70 times, and his first visit was with then Princess Elizabeth 70 years ago this year. Here's Susanna De Silva with some of the Canadians he's inspired over the years.
A solemn song in BC's royal capital, a fitting tribute for the Duke of Edinburgh. When Dr. Kenneth Wilson first started at the University of Edinburgh, Prince Philip spoke to his class.
He gave an excellent address. He got right down to the ground level, to the undergraduate level. It was quite a memorable event in my life.
He helped validate me believe that I had a talent.
For New Brunswick artist Chrétien Corbett, his interaction with Prince Philip was even more profound. Commissioned to sculpt a bust of the Duke, he spent several hours with him.
And he gave me the best piece of advice. He said, keep up the painting. And yeah, I've gone on a completely different path now with my art.
He also influenced 500,000 other Canadians through the Duke of Edinburgh Awards, a program he launched to encourage youth to participate in leadership and physical activities.
It is quite interesting, the number of different programs which each of you have followed.
I just remember a really pleasant, personal chat.
Eileen Carter received her award from him at this event in Vancouver in 2002. She says the program helped shape her life.
Still involved in aviation, which was a part of the award that I was doing, so it has definitely stayed with me.
He was also committed to military causes across Canada. As a former member himself, he was a colonel-in-chief of the Seaforth Highlanders Infantry Regiment in Vancouver and often visited when he came.
He always made a point of visiting our officers' mess, meeting with our officers, chatting with them, and was very, very interested in us, and that meant an awful lot to us. We're really going to miss him. He was a strong leader.
Decades of memories now being shared across the country. Susanna De Silva, CBC News, Victoria.
Acting Governor General Richard Wagner paid tribute to Phillip today. Throughout his long life, His Royal Highness the Duke of Edinburgh devoted himself to the people of the Commonwealth and of Canada. He valued community, duty, and service. He believed in wildlife conservation, volunteerism, and supporting young people. On behalf of all Canadians, I offer my deepest condolences to the members of the royal family. Our chief political correspondent, Rosie Barton, has more of Canada's official response and Phillip's close relationship to this country, in part because he was here all the time. So, Rosie, can you tell us a little bit more?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, he was here a lot, but it wasn't just because of those many trips that he had that close relationship. It's also because of his relationship with Canada's armed forces. He served as an honorary general of the Army, Air Force, Navy, a colonel-in-chief of 6 Canadian units. Remember, Prince Phillip and the Queen have lived through 12 of Canada's prime ministers, but our current prime minister has had a much longer relationship with Prince Phillip than you might expect because, of course, his father was also prime minister. One of Justin Trudeau's first stops when he got the job in 2015 was not only to Buckingham Palace, but also to Malta. For the leaders of the Commonwealth meeting, Prince Phillip was there, and the Prime Minister mentioned that today and how he has known the Duke for really much of his life.
The first times I met him, I was just a kid here in Ottawa many years ago, but obviously over the past few years, I've had the opportunity to have a few more conversations with him. In Malta a few years ago, actually a few months after becoming Prime Minister for the first time, I was able to have a number of wonderful conversations with him, and he is going to be sorely missed, not just by his family, but obviously by all of us.
As you know, Adrian, we don't have a permanent Governor General right now. That would normally be the person who would attend a royal funeral. Given COVID, we don't know how things are going to play out, of course, but the Prime Minister's office says much depends on the wishes of the royal family themselves.
So, is there anything more you can tell us about Phillip's sort of more personal views when it comes to Canada?
He was really into politics. He followed it very closely. Obviously, he wasn't active in it, but he watched events closely, and specifically in Quebec, starting in the late 60s, all the way up to that first referendum in Quebec in 1980. He was really concerned about what that might mean for the monarchy, Canada's relationship with the monarchy, and indeed, they experienced some of that waning support for the royals in Quebec over time. There was a really bad turnout for their trip in 1964 that marked them. The Duke was aware that not all of Canada were great fans of the royals, and he expressed at one point that if there was going to be a break between Canada and the monarchy, he really hoped that there would be a way, an amicable way to make that happen.
So interesting. All right, Rosie, thank you.
Thanks, Adrian.
Prince Phillip and the Queen were married for 7 decades. We will explore that extraordinary connection a little later, as well as the Duke's complicated legacy. And we'll also get a few personal stories from former Governors General and Prime Minister Jean Chrétien.
Well, let's turn to Canada's COVID story and new evidence today of its growing impact. That starts in some increasingly crowded ICUs. This week, patients there have set a pandemic record. Nearly 1,000 Canadians now in ICUs, more than half of them in Ontario. In total number and per capita, that province's ICUs are the hardest hit. That is unsettling enough. But look at Ontario's rate of new cases still spiraling up. It takes time for newly infected people to end up in ICU, which means the worst is likely still to come. In fact, new cases in Ontario today broke a single-day record. The province has issued emergency orders to redeploy government health workers to hospitals and allow hospitals to transfer patients to wherever they can get care. And just like last spring, hospitals are delaying surgeries. Katie Nicholson looks at a province on the edge.
A gallbladder attack sent Rahul Tandon to hospital last month.
The pain was excruciating. I could not sit, I could not stand.
He was about to go under the knife. Now he'll have to wait.
Yeah. And it just got cancelled today.
There was already a backlog of 250,000 necessary operations. Now, only emergency surgeries for strokes, heart attacks, cancer, and trauma are a go. Elective and non-emergency surgeries like hip and knee replacements on hold. All to make space in ICUs, bracing for the mounting COVID wave. A grim sign of what's to come. Last night, a letter from the body that governs doctors as protocols are being drawn up on who gets care and who doesn't. These are extraordinary times that require extraordinary decision-making.
It hits hard and it hits in the gut. Physicians go into medicine first and foremost because we want to help people. And we hold that duty sacred. The idea that we may have to triage access to care based on anything other than medical need and patient wishes, that's not what any of us signed up for.
But from the Premier, an almost rosy view.
If you look around the world, Ontario's doing pretty well right now.
And in fact,
not so, says this doctor.
I think there was a time that we could compare ourselves to our southern neighbors and think that we are in pretty good shape. And I think that time has passed.
The time now, doctors beg, is just to stay home. Katie Nicholson, CBC News, Toronto.
While many elderly Canadians are vaccinated, highly infectious variants have put another group at risk, essential workers. Joanna Meliodas shows us a new strategy in Ontario, taking vaccines to the places the virus is spreading fastest.
The plan was to open a pop-up clinic inside a mosque during Friday prayers, but residents started lining up hours before. And so the pivot to outside, first come, first serve, until supplies last.
We want our neighborhoods to be safe by getting everyone vaccinated.
It is a rush to hope on a grim day. The urgency now in Ontario is to vaccinate the vulnerable, the people who live and work in COVID hotspots like Thorncliffe Park.
I feel amazing, and I'm pretty sure everybody else feels amazing with that because the community cares and they want to see a difference.
I'm so happy. I feel good.
The outreach strategy is supported by staff from nearby Michael Garron Hospital. Its ICU is jammed with younger and younger patients, and that is why the hospital says vaccines must be targeted.
It can't just be an age-based strategy. It needs to be a more specific one, and understanding who the vulnerable people are in some of our local neighborhoods.
Younger essential workers are driving a third wave. It's a race to get to them. In the community of Rexdale, the plan to use transit buses as mobile vaccine units and to set up a walk-in clinic in a community center that is also offering testing.
I think it's really urgent for us to act now. The more we will have people who are vaccinated, the better we can contain the spread of the virus.
Welcome to the York Region COVID-19 Vaccination Clinic.
In the York Region, vaccine slots are filling fast as eligibility widens.
Happy, excited, I am elated.
Vaccines will also go directly to workplaces to get to more essential workers.
It's really to enable as high uptake of the vaccine as possible to offer people kind of that opportunity.
Back at the mosque, people kept lining up well after the day's 200 doses were accounted for. But more vaccines are coming tomorrow. More hope will come too. Joanna Meliodas, CBC News, Toronto.
The new Canadian jobs report had positive news. Employment appears to be booming. Statistics Canada says just over 300,000 new jobs were added in March, 3 times what analysts had expected. That brought the unemployment rate to 7.5%, and that is the lowest point since the pandemic began. But as Diane Buckner tells us, even here, COVID-19 is playing a part.
Pujit Mahat lost his job at the start of the pandemic, but now, after almost a year of searching, he's finally working again.
I joined and did my training and stuff, and now, yes, I'm handling the restaurant.
He, along with hundreds of thousands of Canadians, found themselves back at work in March when stores and restaurants were permitted to reopen across the country.
The biggest gains were in areas like retail and wholesale trade, in culture and recreation, and even a little bit in hotels and restaurants. And those are the exact sectors that have been affected by the pandemic and by shutdown.
Now, though, as COVID variants spread and case counts across Canada rise into the danger zone, a number of provinces are once again locked down. Businesses that were in the process of staffing up to reopen are back at square one.
I recently conducted 12 interviews last weekend, was prepared to bring on this amazing young man and had to call him Wednesday morning and say, sorry, we're getting shut down again.
So while the latest numbers are strong, April's may not be, according to economists. Even so, longer term, these recent gains do bode well for the future.
The good news here is that, just as we rebounded quickly from the second wave restrictions, I think that ultimately we will rebound quickly from the third wave restrictions as well.
Pujit Mahat is happy to have found what he believes is a steady job.
We're getting so busy, we are in fact looking to hire more people just to work here during the pandemic.
That kind of confidence is striking and possibly short-lived, as so many workers and employers across the country struggle through an uncertain and unpredictable time. Diane Buckner, CBC News, Toronto.
Tonight, we're marking the passing of Prince Philip with a look at his life and his love.
Partnership, friendship, loyalty, deep affection.
A 7-decade royal romance, how they made their partnership work.
She wore the crown, but he wore the trousers, if you like.
Prince Philip often said exactly what he thought, to a fault.
He has made a comment which is offensive and racist.
His controversial comments and complicated legacy.
Are you my wife or my queen?
And for a new generation, this is how they got to know the Duke of Edinburgh.
I knew nothing about him. He was just the guy who was at the Queen's elbow sometimes.
The fact and the fiction we're back into.
At Westminister Abbey, where the Queen and Prince Philip were married, the flag marked his death, and the bells rang 99 times this evening, once for each year of his life. That long life included, as we've mentioned, dozens of trips to Canada, also many meetings with First Nations and their leaders. It is a historically complicated relationship. Karen Paul's now with how some Indigenous people are remembering Prince Philip.
During their many royal visits, the Queen and Prince Philip have recognized the unique relationship between the Crown and Indigenous people.
Ever since Europeans began to penetrate central and western Canada, it has been a story of turbulence and change.
During this 1994 visit, celebrating the creation of a new Inuit territory, then Dene National Chief Bill Erasmus made some pointed comments to the Queen.
But because of the policies, your crown has continually been sullied and dishonored.
He followed that up with a more private and relaxed conversation with Prince Philip.
We need to continue that relationship. It's not just symbolic.
This Inuit bush pilot also enjoyed talking to the prince when he'd stopped to refuel his private plane in the late 70s and early 80s. Johnny May even once sent some Arctic char back to England with him.
He was flying through again and he said, Johnny May, I have a message from the missus. She enjoyed the Arctic char immensely.
May remembers Philip's sense of humor.
I don't want to go public on some of it, but just regular pilot talk, a few jokes here and there.
Some of Philip's comments weren't seen as funny, but racist. In 2002, on a visit to Australia with the Queen, he asked a group of Indigenous people, "Do you still throw spears at each other?" In 1995, he asked a Scottish driving instructor, "How do you keep the natives off the booze long enough to pass the test?" During his time as National Chief, Sean Atleo met Prince Charles, the Queen, and Prince Philip.
And so I know like a lot of people's hearts will go out to the family.
Atleo says today Prince Philip should be remembered for his near century of public service. Karen Pauls, CBC News, Winnipeg.
So making blunt and sometimes very offensive comments was something the prince did all the time. Often it was brushed aside as just his way. Other times, the words cut deep and raised eyebrows all over the world. Take the prince's visit to Canada in 1969. Part of the glamorous job involved touring municipal buildings. That's him in Toronto City Hall. But at the opening of an annex in Vancouver City Hall, the sarcasm came out. It gives me great pleasure to declare this thing open, whatever it is. In 1986, during a trip to China, he reportedly told a group of British students, "If you stay here much longer, you'll all be slitty-eyed." The British press was all over it, though the Sun tabloid was equally offensive in its coverage. In 1999, a visit to a Scottish factory led to this comment about a poorly installed fuse box. Prince Phillip said it looked, quote, as though it was put in by an Indian. The palace apologized within hours.
He has made a comment which is offensive and racist.
In 2010, he visited some Navy cadets in the UK. A young female cadet told the Duke of Edinburgh she worked at a club, to which he asked, "What, a strip club?" As the Daily Mail put it, just one more in a long line of unregal remarks. So many years in the public eye, not always saying or doing the right thing. I'm joined now by Vanity Fair's royal editor, friend of the National, Katie Nicholl. Katie, the last time we saw each other was when we covered the marriage of Meghan and Harry in Windsor. Prince Philip's health was a concern then after a hip operation, yet, you know, he managed to walk down the aisle. So often he toughed it out, which makes me wonder, what went through your mind when you heard the news of his death?
Well, I think two things really. One was that I think the Duke had really had enough. There had been so many remarkable comebacks, but I think this was one step too far for him. And of course, my immediate thoughts, as I'm sure for many of your viewers, are with the Queen. She has lost her strength and stay. She has lost her husband, her partner of 73 years, and she will be going through a very difficult period at the moment. We understand that she was by her husband's side. He didn't want to die in hospital. He passed away this morning at Windsor Castle. The Queen was there. It was how they would have wanted it to be. But this is now a very difficult new chapter for Her Majesty the Queen.
I know that any reporter who dared talk with him about the L word, as in legacy, got a bit of a growl back, but he knew this conversation would be had. And so how would you characterize it?
Well, you often got a growl from the Duke of Edinburgh. Sometimes you get a twinkle of the eye too. But he will have known that we will all be discussing his legacy, whether he liked it or not. He does leave a great legacy behind. I think perhaps the greatest being the most modern progressor. I mean, he was an innovator. He was so ahead of his time. And I think really so many people look at him and just see an old man, but actually he was such a modern royal. He really shook the royal family up. He did things differently. He put them in front of the television cameras. He drove around in an electric powered car before any of us have even heard of a hybrid. He was so ahead of his time. And I think he was determined to make sure that the monarchy kept up with the time. It's that fine balance between being just ahead of the curve, but not too far ahead, sort of a nostalgic feel about the monarchy, but a progression that comes with it in order for it to survive. And I think Philip just got that balance absolutely right.
All right, always nice to get your insight, Katie, especially on a day like this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Prince Philip was the longest-serving consort, the spouse of a monarch in British history, and he's being remembered today for his service to the Queen.
And Philip suddenly had to effectively throw up his own life and resign himself to spending the rest of it walking 3 paces behind his wife.
Their steadfast relationship, next.
A candid moment captured in 2005, the Queen giggling at her husband, standing at attention in his uniform and bearskin hat. Laughter, many say, was a defining characteristic of their marriage. So if you look hard enough online, you will see lots of pictures of the shared laughs of the royal couple, a romance spanning 70 years. Anne McMillan shows us how their life together began and the joys and, yes, challenges that followed.
For more than 7 decades, Prince Philip stood dutifully behind his wife in the longest marriage in British royal history.
We're going to look back on this as an amazingly strong royal partnership.
Partnership, friendship, loyalty, deep affection, an indissoluble marriage that really worked.
The Queen was just a child when she first met her future husband. They were third cousins, often meeting at family gatherings. But it was not until Elizabeth reached her teens that the dashing young naval officer caught her eye romantically.
Princess Elizabeth, as then she was, fell in love, there's no doubt about it, with a young man who looked like a Viking god. But she was dutiful enough to fall in love only within a selected gene pool.
They fell in love with one another, but their relationship was never a sentimental lovey-dovey relationship. There are no photographs of the Queen and Prince Philip walking along holding hands. That wasn't their style. She did her thing, he did his thing. They understood one another. That's the way it worked. They didn't gaze necessarily into one another's eyes, but they always looked in the same direction.
After their marriage, the Navy posted Philip to Malta. The Queen remembers this as one of the best periods of her life. She lived relatively normally as a naval officer's wife. But suddenly and unexpectedly, in 1952, her father, King George VI, died, and everything changed. Elizabeth became queen.
And Philip suddenly had to effectively throw up his own life and resign himself to spending the rest of it walking 3 paces behind his wife. The Queen's way of squaring the circle of the fact that she was queen and he was in her shadow was to say that he was head of the family, that she wore the crown but he wore the trousers, if you like.
What's this for?
Prince Philip took on the job of bringing up their 4 children.
Well, it's for helping things, turning things over, and here we are.
And acting as a loyal companion to the Queen.
The salad is ready.
Good.
Someone who saw firsthand why the marriage worked is Prince Philip's biographer, Giles Brandreth. He witnessed a touching scene during a royal car journey.
Prince Philip had the Queen laughing all the way. 45 minutes of laughter. I watched it. And I thought, of course, that's what he gives her. He makes her laugh.
Prince Philip also enjoyed amusing the public. He became famous for his gaffes, but some believe he did it on purpose to help his wife loosen up.
In the early years of the Queen's reign, she came over as rather uptight, rather unsmiley and unapproachable, and he was always trying to encourage her to be more warm, more outgoing, more smiley.
Laughter, loyalty, forthright advice. No wonder the Queen called Philip her rock. And that she readily agreed to his retiring from public duties at the age of 96.
He'd been doing the job for 70 years, and I think he thought, well, it'd be quite fun to have a few years doing my own thing. And I think the Queen thought, well, let the old boy have his own way for a while.
I think the Queen will miss him beyond words.
She'll miss the companionship, she'll miss the comfort, she will miss the laughter. If people regard the reign of Elizabeth II as a success, the joint author of that success was Prince Philip, Duke of Edinburgh.
The Queen is universally admired, but she is right to say that she could not have done it without Prince Philip at her side. Anne McMillan, CBC News, London.
You know, I know so many Canadians know him as a very old man, Ian, but to see all those pictures of him as a young man, I know they've been playing on television screens here, certainly wall to wall in the UK, and part of me can't help but wonder if somewhere today the Queen has caught a glimpse of sort of the full tapestry of her life playing out and seeing him as a young man again.
And clever commentary like in Anne's piece, that historian who said that she was beautiful enough to fall in love within a certain gene pool. Very interesting to see those reflections. Speaking of reflections, up next, Chrétien shares a few carefully candid memories of Prince Philip.
But first, two stories from two former governors general about their visits to Balmoral Castle in Scotland.
Sharon and the prince developed a humorous relationship. We went by Land Rover to a shepherd's cottage in the Highlands, and then we were coming back home about 10 o'clock and it was very, very dark out. And Prince Philip and Sharon were in the Land Rover just ahead of us, and it was kind of moving this way and that way on this narrow road because they were laughing so much. You could hear the laughter coming from the car, and that was Prince Philip to Sharon and myself.
As we arrived in Balmoral, and we had our young daughter, she was only 6 years old, with us, here were the Queen and Prince Philip at the door to greet us. And it was amazing because they broke every rule of protocol. It was like open arms, hugs, welcome. And we were very touched by the special attention he personally paid to our daughter, our 6-year-old. He greeted us in French, which was also very elegant and respectful of him.
Prince Philip had a deep affection for Canada, and on his many trips here, he made some friendships, among them with former Prime Minister of Canada, the Right Honourable Jean Chrétien. I spoke with him about his memories of the Duke of Edinburgh. Jean Chrétien, thank you very much for joining us.
It's my pleasure, sir.
How are you remembering Prince Philip tonight?
Well, I was privileged to know him quite well, and he was quite a gentleman. And it was very entertaining to have chit-chat with him or discussion sitting at the dining table.
So tell me a little bit about that, because you got to see him in a way that none of the rest of us did. What was he like during those chit-chats?
Oh, he was great. You know, he was very direct, very curious, and sometimes making comments that were very colorful. And it was very enjoyable. Of course, I can do the same thing as a reply. So he seems to have enjoyed, and I did enjoy this encounter. And he will use the occasion to practice his French because he spoke pretty good French. When I met him the first time in 1963, we were a bunch of Francophones, and when he came, he talked in French with us. And I said, Your Royal Highness, you speak very good French for an Englishman. He said, I'm not an Englishman, and I was speaking French before you were born, young man. So
Now, you said he made some colorful comments sometimes. As you know, sometimes in public life, he would get in trouble because he would say things that were considered impolite. What about in private?
You know, in private, he was quite a guy. You know, he loved sports. So, you know me, I love sports. So we discussed that. You know, in many occasions, we will discuss the Canadian politics necessarily, but other politics. He will make comments about leader and how they give my views. You remember after the election of Trump, we had quite a good discussion about that, that I will not share with you. And that is, you know, it was, I was lucky in a way because he was a person who had been at war, and he was from a royal family of Europe, and he married the Queen of the Great Britain. So it was, he had quite a CV, as I can use that term.
You must be thinking about the impact this will have on the Queen.
Oh, it will be difficult because I lived the same thing the last 7 months ago when Aline disappeared, and when you spend, like me, 63 years in my case with the same person, you know, it's a big hole when you find yourself alone. But it's life, and I know her, and she's a very courageous and determined person. You know, she's been in the head of the Queen since probably 68 years, something like that. So it's difficult to, she will face it with courage and determination, but I'm telling you, internally, it will be very difficult.
Mr. Chrétien, thank you very much for speaking with us.
It was my pleasure to be with you today.
Many Canadians know Prince Philip best from Netflix.
I will not kneel before my wife.
Your wife is not asking you to.
But my queen commands me.
Yes.
I beg you make an exception for me.
No.
The Crown transformed his image. Was it accurate? That's next. For an entire generation, Prince Philip's life may not have been too familiar were it not for a hit show, The Crown. The Netflix series cast new light on the Duke of Edinburgh. Deanna Sumanak-Johnson looks at the show's impact on the prince's image.
She is the job. Loving her, protecting her.
Queen Elizabeth wears the crown, but in the Netflix series about the royals, Prince Philip gets an even share of screen time. When viewers first see him, he is a proud young man, constantly reminded of his inferior position to his wife.
Are you my wife or my queen?
I'm both.
I want to be married to my wife.
I do think we can claim to have presented a fuller, and I would obviously claim, accurate picture of this complex man.
But how much of what is shown in the series is actually true? Controversially to some, The Crown blends careful historical research with what its creators call informed speculation.
One example, the decision to televise the Queen's coronation. At the time, the public was told it was the Queen's idea, but the show portrayed it differently and perhaps more accurately.
It was the Queen herself who didn't want the coronation televised in any way because she was so shy and scared. And it was Prince Philip, among other people, who won her round.
It is a great honour, gentlemen.
But another event probably didn't happen as portrayed on the show. Prince Philip did meet with the astronauts who walked on the moon, but there's no evidence the meeting triggered an outpouring of emotion.
I've not been able to achieve the things I would have liked to. As a man, as an adventurer.
But no matter what the Crown's relationship to truth, its depiction of Prince Philip has piqued the interest of younger viewers, those whose primary experiences had to do with younger royals, not Prince Philip.
I knew nothing about him. He was just the guy who was at the Queen's elbow sometimes.
In fact, these bloggers and authors found the Crown sometimes gave Prince Philip too much attention and too much sympathy.
It tended to do so from the point of view of making Philip the hero of that story, which was an interesting choice. Not a choice that I would have made.
But the show's creators say if the Crown's dominant story is that of a marriage, its mission is accomplished.
Historically, it's very much a partnership, and I'm glad that we've given proper credit to the partner who doesn't always get and certainly does not seek the recognition.
Though the man the Queen called her strength is gone, his story will live on screen with 2 more seasons of The Crown yet to come. Deanna Sumanak-Johnson, CBC News, Toronto.
And the last word tonight goes to Prince Philip, the Queen's consort, in his own words. Next.
Prince Philip left an indelible mark on Canada with his many visits, with his patronage, and with his role as consort and close support to Canada's Queen. The tributes and memories we've shown you speak to a long life of service and spirit.
So tonight, to end this special edition, we hear from Prince Philip over the years.
And that is a national for April the 9th. Thanks for watching. Good night.
We've got to get away from the idea that it is possible or even desirable to tell people what is good for them. Instead, I believe we should set out to expose people, particularly young people, to as wide a variety of rewarding experiences as possible. Ignorance is the mother of bigotry, and only the narrow-minded find it possible to be bored. Britain is not just an old country of tottering ruins inhabited by idle roués in eyeglasses. where yokels quaff ale by the tankard outside rickety pubs.
The thing of the monarchy is part of the kind of fabric of the country, and as the fabric alters, so the monarchy and its people's relation to it alters. Now, in 1953, the situation in this country was totally different to what it is now. We were a great deal younger, and I think young people, a young queen and young family is infinitely more newsworthy and amusing than, you know, we're getting on from middle age, and I dare say when we are really ancient, there might be a bit more reverence again. I don't know.